Okay, we're back with a little bit more on this database stuff and a few things I want to point out to you. Um, Over here in your Solution Explorer, um, let me show you the tables that I've already done. You know I've already put these. I've got courses, people, students, and users. Okay, but if we go over to our Solution Explorer, notice I've got um, this course.cs. I've got person and I've got student and I've got user. Okay, so let me just say I open up student and I look at the class and I'll open that up. And notice all the stuff that we did in one of the previous videos regarding how to set up our table. It's all in here, but you and I didn't have to actually code this. It was all done because of the entity framework. So I just wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. And some of this, it's best to have a good clear picture of the database that you want to build prior to actually building it so you don't have to go in and start doing editing. Okay, because I don't want to go in and start editing the size of these string lengths and all that kind of stuff. Now, I want to make sure that I have a clear understanding up front of what it is that I actually want to do. So I just wanted to touch on that little issue as well. If I go to person, same thing. Um, I've got all these different things, people ID, first name, last name, email, phone number, and user. Uh, okay, course. Okay, course ID, course code, course short description, and credit hours. Okay, and what's interesting is that it actually shortened that name all on its own. And I think the last thing I want to look at right now is you notice that this names context connection is in here. And I want to be careful because to slide through all that stuff, it's important that this line 17 that you have that in there. Okay, it's part of the framework, and if you don't have it, things are going to break down. So that's your connection string to your database. Okay, and then up here, names context. Okay, that's what this file names context.cs, and over here it produces its own class, right? Just right in here, and everything is in there that we looked at before. So we're going to get into using this stuff in a short while. Okay, one more file that I do want to look at right now is your dataform.cs right over here. And I want to look at all of these using statements. Okay, so what the entity framework has done is it actually has populated many of these things already. And the important thing is it's kind of grayed out in some cases. It means that, hey, we're not going to use it. We're not using it right now, but we possibly could. So we've sort of got these using statements as standby. Okay, so it's important that you see them, they're grayed out, don't worry, they're available to you, but you're just not currently using them at the moment. The only one for sure you're using is the forms. Okay, so it's important to understand that it gets populated for you, but you will more than likely use it when you're doing this database stuff. Now, one thing I should do right off the bat is just see if we're good. See if the actual application will run, and there it is. Okay, nothing in it, haven't connected any data whatsoever. So far so good, and I'm not showing any errors whatsoever. That's always a good sign. Okay, now I've shown you how to do everything in that one way. Right now, I'm actually going to show you another way to do all of this stuff. That's probably the industry standard on how it's actually currently being done. Who knows what fancy software will come up with methodology for doing data later on. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just shut all that off, and I'm going to go up to my project name. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to do an add a new folder, and I'm going to call this models. Okay, if I could spell ELS. Yep. Okay, and that's working. So in here, you guessed it, what I am, entity data model, and I'm going to call this one school context, right? Add brings me to here, code first from database, next, and I'm going to stick with this connection. Okay, but this time, what I do want to do is call this connection. Okay, school context connection, and make sure that that's checked. Okay, hit next. Okay, it'll bring you to this screen here where you've got your tables. Okay, I'm going to open that up. I'm only going to select courses and students. Ignore people and users. That's old stuff I don't need right now. Okay, pluralize and singularize, and then hit finish. Okay, see what happened. Schools context.cs opened up. I've got my schools context connection. I've got my two getters and setters for courses and students, and then the other entity code for the items that pertain to what I want to do. Okay, and then let's go back to app configuration just to make sure it's there. Notice I've got name context connection, school context connection. So those things are all in there for me. Okay, let's go back to here. All right, so we're in really good shape right now. And just to be sure, let's go back, run it, see if we have any errors generated anywhere. And it looks like everything works, so we're in good shape. Okay, one thing that I do have to address now, I can't leave it any longer, but notice this is a course and courses. Okay, so I have to go back, and I do need to rename that. I don't know why it actually renamed that. It's fine, but you just have to make sure it's all done the same. Course ES, and I'm spelling it exactly the same. COU, yeah, good. It'll ask me, and of course, yes. And notice here now that it's updating. Okay, it's updating in all the right places. And one more time, I'm going to test it to make sure I didn't break anything. No errors, and it's working well. Good. Just so you know, I have a couple of different tables in here. I've got user and I've got person in here. Okay, you don't need to have either one of those in there for you, but you probably will if you were following along earlier. It was just you may have jumped ahead or something, and when we were selecting which table that we want to bring in, you possibly selected all of them instead of just the two that I put up on this video. So one thing I can do is I can actually right click that, and I can delete it. Yep, and I can go to users. I don't need that either. Okay, so just delete that out of my models folder. Okay, it's still in there. The table still exists. I just don't want it inside my models. Okay. Okay, really quickly, let's have a look inside courses. Okay, we're good. It starts with a capital here, and it's ID, and notice we've got this still as our primary key for courses ID. Course code is good, course short description is good, credit hours are good. Okay, and now let's go over and have a look at student. Okay, it's got a primary key and all the other information that we're looking for. Interesting, there's no date in there the way it's specified. I did set it up, let me go down to where I had my student stuff. So date of birth, I probably could have done a better job of cleaning that up with a date. However, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I did generate it out of this generatedata.com website. And if I go back you'll see in the tables, I did actually specify it was a date and give it a sample, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, this generateData.com is how I produced all the data for this particular tutorial anyway, and then I cleaned it up a little bit and I put it into this file that I'm just giving to you. So anyway, that's where the data is coming from. I didn't just relentlessly type it all in. Okay, I'm not that crazy or dedicated. So anyway, let's move along. Okay, so we want to start connecting this, the data to the actual application. But one of our problems that we've got right now is that it actually has no physical connection. The tables exist, the database exists, and the application exists. Okay, but somehow we haven't connected them yet. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Okay, so check this out. We're going to do two different things, okay? Because I've got tables in the model folder, but I've also got this user, and I've also got my names context. Okay, so I actually want to reference users through my names context. Anything that's inside my names context, I want to get a hold of. Okay, and look at what's inside here. Okay, I've got courses, people, students, and users. Okay, so I'm going to try to go ahead and grab users and put that inside my application. Okay, and okay, so the way I want to do that is I actually have to reference this names context to get access to the user's information. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to do names, see if the IntelliSense, yeah, it picks it up, names context. Okay, and I'm just going to call it names DB and new names context. Okay, there, I'm connected. I've just connected my database to that particular table, which is users. Okay. Okay, I want to do that with my schools context, but my challenge there is that schools context is actually inside models. Okay, it's not out in the open like names context is. So if I were to try to do schools, what's it called? School context and school DB equals new school context. Okay, I'm getting errors. And so what I'm going to do though is go to here, show potential fixes. Okay, and let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so remember that if we do a using statement, we can call it using people.models. And models is actually the folder up here that we're referencing. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do that. Okay, and now look at the top of my screen, using people data dot models. And that's actually now referencing into that particular folder, so I can gain access to that school context. Okay. Okay, let's try to spend some time getting this, making these connections. Okay, so I'm in my dataform.cs, and if I go to my design, I'm just going to double click on dataform. Okay, it should open up, gives me this method right here. Okay, so we're going to do some stuff that we kind of touched on before with lists. Okay, not too complicated, but I'm going to give you the code. Follow along with the code, and you'll start to see how it's all coming together. And pay very particular attention to what I'm doing on how to access this these data members. It's not a lot of code I'm going to do in this first part, but this little nugget there, this data form load, the way I write this function is going to help you quite a bit with your third assignment. Okay, so it's going to be like this. I'm going to go into, I'm going to call this var user list. It's going to equal, okay, a from user in names database, okay, which is up here. We're getting that from up top. Okay, and it's going to be dot users. Okay, and then don't just hit your space bar or enter or whatever. Select user. Okay, to go to the outside, and then make this a to list. Okay, before we all sort of left the school for good, we started talking about lists. Here's an example of a list right now, what we're going to do. Okay, now from there, we're going to go into a for each loop. Okay, for each. And when you type that, you can actually do a tab, and it'll fill in the, it'll create the rest of the for each. So we're going to do user, user in, user list. It's the one thing I love about IntelliSense is that you know you're doing something right when it actually shows up in the list. So for now, I'm gonna do this as a console write, but we'll attach it to the application later. Don't worry. So debug dot write line user dot, let's just see, notice it picked up first name. That's good. But one of my problems is, other than the semicolon, is that if you get this arrow, you can just do what it is up here, your diagnostics. You don't have your diagnostics. So if I take that out, you may be getting it on your screen. Just control ... and using system diagnostics. That'll clear that error. It'll put that up there. So what I want to do is, notice all my errors are gone. I'm just going to run this, and my actual application isn't going to look right, but that's okay. I'm more interested in the output down at the bottom. Okay, so what you're seeing right now is a blank. There's no data in there. However, down here in the console, a couple of videos ago, we did populate this with Tom, Guido, Jane, James, and Keanu. Okay, so we've got access to the data. We are actually connected. Next, we just need to put it into the output of the actual application. Okay. Okay, just for fun, let's do one more. Okay, I think it's important that we actually get this right. So let's go and do one more of these, and we'll grab it from the course list. Okay, so var course list is going to equal another from, let's say course in school, should be school DB. Okay, dot courses. Okay, and then select course. Okay, and dot to list. Oh, not to array, list. Okay, and then another for each. Okay, so for each and tab. Oh God. All right, for each tab, and we'll call it course in course list. Okay, and then go to here and we'll just grab this same line again here. And I'm going to call this one not user. It should be course dot, what's a good dot? Description. Okay, and let's see what happens. Okay, that actually compiled properly. Maybe I shouldn't have picked course description because the example data that I put in was all in whatever language this is. It doesn't look French to me. I don't necessarily care, but it's in there. Okay, maybe what I'll do is instead of course description, I'm gonna just see if I can do course. Okay, see what else I could put in there. Dot. How about course code? Okay, let's run that. Okay, so we're in good shape. It looks like it printed out all the names and then went into all the different courses. Okay, so that worked out. Okay, so that's good. Let's move on. Okay, so there's one more thing that I want to do. I want to just talk about getting kind of a return to maybe just a single user. Okay, I'm going to make a couple changes on here. So don't worry, I'll return everything back to normal. So let's say I just want to go in and search for the name, like just have a hard-coded name that I'm looking for in a search. Okay, so I'm going to call this single user. Okay, and instead of this, I'm going to say where user dot first name is equals Tom. Okay, and I'm not going to be returning a list. I'm actually going to, this will be something called first or default. Okay, then it's not really going to be, I don't need to put this in a for each anymore. So I can get rid of this, and I need to copy that into here. So let's run this, see what happens. I should be just returning the name Tom, and I know it's in there because it's right there. Okay. Okay, and there it is. We got the result we were looking for. But there's one other thing we can do, just kind of playing around a little bit further, is I can do this, copy that, and tab this over. Let's go with last. Okay, and let's see what we get there. Okay, compiled, and there it is. Okay, it's my first name, my last name, but notice they're on different lines. I'm making two separate calls to my database. Okay, they're not side by side, they're not, it's just, I'm making two separate calls on line 32 and 33. Okay? Okay, let's do one more thing. Let's say I've got nothing that actually is in my database, so I'm going to call this Georgian. Okay? Okay, let's run it. Okay, so here's the result, right? There is no person in the database called Georgian. So I'm going to stop this. And the one thing that I can actually do is I could probably go up into here and let's do a TryCatch. So try tab creates this. Right, and then I can take all of this right here and do an Alt up key and put that all in there. Okay, and then Let's, what else do we have to? Okay, and so we'll see what happens if this doesn't work out. What do we do in the actual catch portion of this? So I'm going to call this exception. Okay, and then let's do this. I'll do, I just need this. I don't want any of that. What I want is exception dot message. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, it compiled. Okay, we've got the exception, it got thrown, but it gave us this message there. It was kind of the default message that the catch message was throwing out, and then it went into the next part of what we were calling. Okay, you could specify whatever message it is that you want to have in there. That this is just what the default was. Okay, you just put something that says name not found in the database or whatever. Okay. So I think what I'm finally going to do is just let me return all that. Before I was looking for Georgian. Okay, I'm just going to leave that way. And I think I'll leave the video there. And I'll come back and I'll do another one shortly. And make sure we can figure out how to connect this to your application itself. Okay, so practice this. Make sure you're really comfortable with it. You got all the steps, and you're outputting the right stuff. Okay.